Today's episode is brought to you by the Butler County 4-H and FFA Junior Livestock Auction, happening at the Butler Farm Show on Thursday, August 7th, starting at 5:30 p.m. Welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with Sue Tidwell, author of Cries of the Savanna. If you listened to part 1, you heard Sue open up about her emotional journey through Tanzania, the grief she carried, the people who changed her perspective, and how witnessing life on the ground challenged everything she thought she knew about wildlife and hunting. In this episode, we dive even deeper into the realities of conservation, the controversy surrounding Cecil the lion, and what gets lost when outrage replaces understanding. It's a powerful conversation, and one I hope leaves you thinking.
I can't think of what I would do differently because I think everything evolved the way it should have. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think I learned as I went, which seemed very real. You know, and I am a person, well, I like to think I'm a person with good common sense. So to me, it all made common sense.
You seem to be, yes.
You know,
yeah.
So to me, even though I'm emotional, I'm also very pragmatic. So when I was there and I could see what they're dealing with, you know, let's use this for an example. We were going back to camp and we come across 3 Tanzanians walking, which was on our land. Right away, the rifles started coming out because we thought they might be poachers, but they stopped. And here there was a concession, I don't know how many miles away, across a riverbed or something. And we stopped to talk to them because they didn't have rifles or anything. They weren't poachers. They were coming to our camp for medicine. And it was in the heat of the day. And I said to Raphael later, I said, why would they walk in the heat of the day when it was 105 degrees? Why wouldn't they have come in the morning or evening? And without even skipping a beat, he said, well, because it's the safest kind of day because the lions will be napping. You know, that just hit me. Little things hit me more so than sometimes even the bigger things. Because he said it so casually and so matter-of-factly that is their life, that is what they have to deal with.
They have to walk in the heat of the day so a lion doesn't...
Yeah, they have to do their chores around the safest time of day. Every time they go to get water in these villages, if they don't have a well, it's life-threatening. I mean, there's hippos, crocs, people just disappear.
Like miles and miles that they have to walk a lot of times just to get water,
Yeah.
which is a huge... People...
For our water, they had to scoop it out by the can. It was a dried-up riverbed, so they had to dig into the riverbed, into the sand, till there would be a puddle there. They'd scoop it out by the can, put it in 5-gallon buckets, carry the 5-gallon bucket to the barrel, heat it over a fire, put it back in a 5-gallon bucket, carry it up a ladder to dump it in a tank above our tent so that we could have hot water for a shower. Now, granted, my showers got really short once I learned all this.
That's wild.
The work involved and just taking care of 4 Americans for what we expected. And we're not even real high maintenance Americans because we're used to camping. You know, we were used to, that. So,
yes.
But anyway.
Ooh, that's a lesson right there for anyone listening who's maybe complaining about, my hot water tank broke last week. And I just sort of had this moment where I was like, I don't have any hot water.
Well, I tell you, it's ruined me for showers to this day.
Oh, I'm sure.
I can't get a shower for more than a few minutes without feeling guilty. I'm not saying I don't do it sometimes now, but I feel guilty every time I am in the shower more than a few minutes because I really appreciate water now.
I feel like more people need to go to Africa.
Yeah, to appreciate what we have here.
To appreciate what we have here. And I mean that wholeheartedly. A lot of things I think have gotten out of control.
Yeah, the things we complain about are just ridiculous sometimes.
I will often make the comment, well, it's a first world problem. I've worked in restaurants, and I remember I'd worked in a restaurant, and I had told them, we're really busy tonight. We have 2 cooks, 150 heads, so 150 people, right? 3 waitresses, 2 bartenders, 2 cooks on the line. You have a person downstairs hustling to wash dishes. They make everything fresh to order. So there's a lot of pans that they're making the pasta sauce in, throwing the fresh pasta in, homemade pasta every day. So a lot of those skillets are getting washed. They're going through buckets and buckets of them. And I told the table, you need to order your you should order your entrees when you order your appetizers. That way, as soon as the appetizers hit the table, I can send the others to the kitchen. We're really busy tonight. It's going to be a little bit of a wait. Not a problem. We're not that worried about it. We'll get our appetizers and we're going to think about what we're getting for dinner. Fine. Appetizers hit the table. Everything's good. Can I get you anything else right now? And they said no. And I said, before you do start on your appetizers, have we thought about entrees? Well, we still want a little bit of time. So they waited another 10 minutes. I finally put their meal in, and about 20 minutes after their meal was put in, they were complaining. And I went over and I kneeled next to the table. I remember looking at this gentleman. I said, sir, I am very sorry about the wait. However, I did preface with how important it was to get your entrees in at the same time. And if you can see, we have two gentlemen back there who are working so hard and they're making all the food. And he looked right at me and he crossed his arms. He's like, I don't care. I shouldn't have to wait this long. And I was so close to just saying, that is a first world problem. There are children in Africa that don't have shoes on their feet. Mm-hmm. There are girls in Africa that don't have underwear.
Yeah.
So imagine what happens monthly for these girls once they start menstruating. They can't go to school. Yeah. So they miss school. Mm-hmm. And then they don't graduate. And people think they don't know why that's happening. It's because they physically, they don't have the money to buy underwear or shoes. And you're complaining to me about waiting for your fresh pasta meal.
Yeah,
it's really hard sometimes to not want to just tell people it could be so much worse. And are you grateful for anything that you have? I almost feel as if, and I've always said this, that if I had ever had kids, I would say you have to get a job at some point in the service industry. Mm-hmm. Because there's something about that, but it's like we have no idea. And there are people that are struggling. I don't want to diminish the people in our country that are struggling, because there are a lot of people right now that are struggling, and not to take away from our conversation. However, perspective is everything, and this conversation has a lot to do with perspective.
Yeah.
You and I have a lot of the same sort of feelings when it comes to this topic. I've always, growing up in a house, same thing. Brothers would go hunting. The deer would be in the garage. I'd see it. It was normal to me. That's not a shocking thing, but I've never seen a deer actually get shot and die. I've never seen that. And I'm in a place in my life right now where I'm like, maybe that's something I should experience or something I should understand at that level, because what if I do have to start hunting for my own food someday with everything that's sort of happening, and having respect for the animals? It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I think for people to understand the depth of this, when you...
I know it's really hard for me. Some of the comments I get on my posts, it's really hard for me to stay civil. I do try to stay civil, but it is a battle.
Yes.
Because sometimes I just want to go, are you serious? But luckily, a lot of other people jump in and say what I don't want to say.
Well, people who understand it, or have at least opened their mind up to a different perspective, but also people who know you as a person. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the hardest things when we're having these conversations is, do you really even know who that person is? Like, that's a good person who would probably take, the coat off their back and give it to a complete stranger. Or I would step into the street and pull someone in front of a car or a bus. And anyway, it wouldn't matter who it was.
And I think that's what's kind of cool about the book is people do feel like they know me after they've listened to it or read it. Yes. So they do sometimes come to my defense or chime in when I'm getting attacked or whatever. I'll just use a little example. I just posted about our hippo hunt. We talked a little bit earlier when we were in Mozambique a couple years ago. And Rick wasn't going to hunt hippo. He was there for a crocodile. And we had hundreds of villagers lining up, walking us to the river in the morning, and then, because we had about a mile walk, and then waiting for us to come back, hoping he had a croc, which would be some meat. Mm-hmm. And I just fell in love with these kids. They walked us there and back every day. Mm. And I told Rick, we asked Rich, our professional hunter, is there anything we can do? He says, well, there's a management hippo on allotment. So I said, Rick, you got to buy. We didn't have it in the budget, but we didn't care. So we bought the management hippo, which means you don't take anything home. No skin, no tusk, nothing. But he hunted the management hippo, and it's another one of those things that just hits you. They waited up all night to help drag the hippo in. They drug it to an island. When we first went, because they went running down to the side when they heard the shot. Some of the villagers and a little boy there, and when Rich told him, we got a hippo, we need you to help us bring it in, he went running off saying, we're going to have meat. And it's just like, it just hits you. And then they all showed up.
People.
Yes, you're feeding people. And all these men showed up on their boats to harvest it, cut it into quarters. They all divided it, took it back in the boats. And there were little dugouts in that crocodile-infested water, which is very dangerous. But and then so we went back for Rick to go do his croc hunt. So we're sitting in a blind. This is like day 5 or something. Anyway, we hear these drums going up and down. And Rich said, "You know what that is?" And I said, "No." He says, "That's them letting the people up and down the river know that there's meat to come for meat." So you're sitting there.
Oh, wow.
And you're hearing those drums, and it just touches your soul in a way that you can't put into words, And it's a lot of people, hunters or even hunters say, well, I don't hunt unless I can eat it. Well, I can tell you one thing. It's way more rewarding to hunt and give the food to someone else than it is to put it in your own stomach. Yeah.
There really is something about that, like doing something for someone who can never repay you. And you don't want repaid, right? Mm-hmm. You just want to be able to do something good for someone, to give them nourishment, to give them you're giving them hope. You're
giving them hope because there's jobs. It brings so much to those rural areas. No tourist would go to where we were at in Mozambique. I'm telling you, no tourist would go there. So it's just, there was no wildlife outside of the river. Then we stayed in hunting reserve, almost a 2-hour drive to the river. There was no wildlife in between. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until you got to a hunting reserve where there was wildlife, because all that was there was crops, cattle, goats, rice, and the wood was all chopped down because they all cook with wood, every day. So yeah, it's until you see it in person, it's hard to understand, but yeah, it just changes how you feel when you know. This is just a kind of another interesting story. I talked to a female professional hunter, and she was telling the story about a woman came with her husband, and he wanted to hunt elephant, and she hated the idea, just hated it, was really pissed at her husband. And after he did get one, Tanya said, just come with me for a minute. Mm-hmm. So afterwards, she took her in the thing, and they drove up to this orphanage, and they saw the vehicle coming and came running out because they knew what that meant. Mm-hmm. And she saw all them come for this meat and all that good. Then that woman totally had to change around when she saw it. So then she wanted her husband to kill every animal he could sustainably on the because you're allotted certain animals. When you buy a tag there, it might say you're allowed to hunt a Cape buffalo, a zebra. There's an allotment depending on where you're at. And but yeah, she was like, she wanted to survive as much. She wanted her husband to supply as much meat as he could. So
yes. It's just understanding that and knowing that they also have so much respect for the animals. Mm-hmm. And you've talked about that and how respectful they are, even when an animal is harvested, how they treat that, how they take a moment, to respect that animal's life and being mindful of that. But it's just circle of life, right? Mm-hmm. It is. It's very much the circle of life, So writing this book, what was the hardest chapter emotionally or ethically, and why?
I think the hardest chapter was the final chapter, because I didn't want to repeat myself, but I kind of wanted to, because, it had taken a few years for me to write the book and then get everything done and then figure this whole thing out, because I was a new author. I never published a book before, and I had to figure it all out myself. I had no one to lean on personally to ask opinions about. But anyway, so I did a lot of research and stuff. But that was hard. Like, how do I say, sum it all up without repeating myself, but really getting the point across where really, like, in an emotional way that connects with people. So I'd say that was probably the hardest because I wanted people to walk away and say, okay, I don't care about hunt. I don't want to hunt. I whatever. But I understand it now, you know. So
That's
and
beautiful.
I wanted them to go to Africa.
Absolutely. So you've written this book, lived this. It's a transformation, right?
It was. Yep.
Do you still wrestle with anything that you saw or learned?
There's certain things that are still hard, like the culling of elephants. Like a lot of people think elephants are endangered, but there are way too many elephants in many parts of southern Africa. The very nations that have regulated hunting have too many elephants. That tells you something. The places that they're endangered usually don't have hunting. So that shows how well sustainable use works. But anyway, like Kruger, for instance, and don't again quote me on exact numbers, but I think they're supposed to have 4,000 to 7,000 elephants. They have like 27,000 last I looked. They're destroying the habitat. I mean, they're destroying the habitat for all these other wildlife. And in the old days, when that happened, they would cull elephants. Culling means you're killing a large quantity just to keep the population down. And in the case of elephants, you kill a whole animal family because it's just better for the family to. Yeah, you don't want one surviving and living that trauma because they are such special animals.
They're very special animals, and they are a very family-oriented herd.
Yeah, they're very protective.
They're very protective,
and it really does stress them out when a female. That's why it's. I mean, some places they allow hunting of old cows when the population's too much. Every nation's a little different, but that's why it's. At least bulls, they don't have the same bond that the females do. But in culling, you kill the whole family. And that's really hard for me to understand. But at the same time, I support it because I know that if that habitat is destroyed, not only are they eating themselves out of house and home, but they're destroying habitat for every animal in that. Madikwa Reserve right now in South Africa is a walking example of that. It's a contained reserve. They wanted to appeal to the photo tourists, so they stopped sustainable use of wildlife on this reserve. The elephant population is rated for about 600 elephants, I believe. Okay. It's up to 1,600, and it looks like a minefield. It is horrible what's happened there. In last year, during the dry season, I think they lost about 80 elephants, died of starvation. Do you know what a slow, horrible death that is?
That's awful. And I was just going to ask you, I imagine at some point they're starving because
they're starving. And every other animal is, the little animals have been driven out, you know what I mean? Because there's nothing for them to eat. They're dying. But it was a big selling point to the parks or to there was 30 lodges in this area. And they had a lot of elephants, so that was great for tourists. But look what, they didn't manage it for you can't manage just for a particular animal. You have to manage for habitat. That's even more important than one animal or a bunch of animals, to be honest. You have to manage for habitat because once that's destroyed, these canopy of trees, or elephants push down these canopies of trees. Once that's down, then the sun hits the dirt, it bakes the dirt. It's just this whole snowball effect that really just destroys habitat. And Hwange National Park, I just read an article, they're worried that the acacia trees they're endangered in Hwange National Park because there's too many elephants. So
and they're destroying them. They're eating them and destroying them.
Yeah. In Zimbabwe, where we just came from last year, there were downed baobabs, 3,000-4,000, thousands of year-old trees downed by elephants because they eat them till they fall over and then they continue because there's a lot of water in baobab trees. Okay. And those are critical to people and wildlife, all kinds of animals. So when you destroy that baobab, even if all of a sudden the elephants all die, that tree is not getting replaced in just a generation. It took thousands of years to get to that point. So you have to think of the bigger picture.
You talked a little bit about your relationship, during this, like with the whole process during this trip, but how has your relationship to grief, nature, and even like your own identity changed because of this journey?
Well, I've learned a lot more that there's always two sides to every story, to be more open-minded, to try to research both sides, and look for the faults in them. Like, because I also read the anti-hunting rhetoric. I read those articles, but there was always a fault. There's always stuff missing from them. So you just try to really have an open mind and put yourself in other people's place, how they might feel, how they might, what it's like for them, you know, and put yourself in their place. How would you like your grandkids? I put my, like, how would I like it if my grandkids had to walk to school to past lions and elephants? Would they even get to go to school? What would I do to make sure my grandkids got to go to school and made it there every day safely? You know, what would I do to make sure my crops survived so that I could feed my family for the year and had hope for the future?
Yeah, it's wild. It's just a whole different world. Okay. So what do you think Mike, your brother, would say about the woman that you became through this experience?
I think Mike would be really proud of what I've done and how I've pretty much dedicated my life to this now, because I feel so passionate about the wildlife and the people of Africa, and they're tied together. You can't root for one without the other. And I think he'd be really proud of what I've done, and you know, so yeah, that makes me happy.
I do too. I think that's such a strong, important statement that you just made, is that they go hand in hand with the people. And that's where people have to understand that if we didn't have, you know, mass production of chicken meat and beef and pork, and we had to go out and hunt or wonder where our next meal was going to come from, people would look at life a little bit differently. And I do think about it all the time, because there's moments where I would feel torn, where I feel, oh, this is terrible what they did to Cecil. This is terrible what happened. However, I didn't know the whole story. Like you said, there's two sides to every story. But I go to the store, I buy chicken, I buy beef, but then I'm all for, you know, saving animals. And yet it's like, but I know how those animals are being killed. And I do have moments where I think, maybe I should, you know, like go hunt my own food, you know, my own meat.
Well, we're all a little bit of hypocrites in ways, you know. I'm a hypocrite. I still eat meat that I don't hunt. I allow other people to do the dirty work. I go with them. I'm part of it, but I still at this point choose not to pull the trigger. But and there's so many ways people don't even realize, like people, because they often say, well, you know, why are you doing this, da 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 da, and I'll be like, but you kill animals every day, even if you're a vegetarian. What do you think these crops, these fields of wheat and corn, what do you think they did to the habitat and the wildlife that was there before that? Where a deer you harvest, there's still all kinds. There's squirrels and chipmunks and fox and all that around. Now, somebody's a vegetarian. For them to have nice, organic, sustainable food, they have to kill every critter, slice and dice, fertilizers, you know, all that goes with that. And then our homes. How many habitat do we destroy by the homes we live in? Our phones. Cobalt comes from the rainforest where the gorillas are, and that's being chopped down, you know, and threatening gorillas. So we are all guilty.
Yes.
We're all guilty. All we can do is try to do the best we can and try to do our little piece. Because, yeah, even I'm not going to give up my cell phone. I don't want to give up my cell phone. But I understand that comes at a price and stuff, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it is just that doing the best that we can, but also educating ourselves. And like, that's essentially what you were doing, was educating yourselves. But in the process, you thought, this is so much bigger than what it had to be so much bigger than what you even could have imagined.
Oh, yeah. I had no clue, you know, and everything I learned on that first safari is just reinforced over and over every time. I've been back 4 times since, and we're going again this year. But, yeah, it's just reinforced over and over. I just see it in a little different, you know, every nation's a little different, but it just reinforces everything I learned.
Absolutely. And you went on legit, you've said this, but you were in a tent.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you did refer to a portion where you were surprised, like by the bathroom facilities that you had, that you were like, oh wow, there's like a toilet. Like I actually have,
Yeah, because when I go to elk camp with Rick, we're doing the PTA.
Yep.
Pits and
I was just gonna say PT, and you said ASS. Yes,
Yep.
on the audiobook.
Because
I did have that written down.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's what you did there. You get a little bucket of water, heat it up, and that's your bath for the week. And you go out and you dig a hole in the ground, and that's where you go. But in Tanzania, because we're spoiled Americans, they had that little bathroom built to the back of our tent, so we just had to unzip the tent and walk back there. And then we still had to look in the rafters for snakes and stuff, they told us, and that mouse was there. And
that
but
little
anyway,
mouse.
that little mouse had caused me so much torment. And you don't want to scream in Africa for no reason, you don't want to scream because of a mouse.
Sure.
So, but anyway,
and they're like a mouse, really.
But yeah, they had water on top of there, so we could have a flushing toilet. And of course, it took me a few days before I really put it all together.
Yeah.
But I was like, because we're just so used to that. But I was like, this was pretty cushy. I thought it was going to be really roughing it, but I have a tent that was as clean could be. I mean, there wasn't one grain of sand in that tent. There wasn't one bug in that tent.
Wow.
Because I don't know what they did when we were gone, but I mean, we had zippers. You didn't leave your tent open by any means there. But yeah, I never felt like in the tent. I felt safe. I know that sounds silly, but the animals look at the tent supposedly differently than. Okay. Yeah, they look at it as just they don't look at it like, oh, there's people in there.
Got it.
Anyway.
Well, that was the other thing too that came up was about the camouflage. You had to wear beige, gray, or brown, right? You couldn't wear actual like what we have camping. Oh my gosh. Camouflage. Hunting camouflage here in the United States because was it their military?
It's their
war?
military, yeah. So you don't want to be confused with the military.
Yes.
So yeah, you just wear the basic,
you
and that's for several reasons, but that's also to help tsetse flies are drawn to certain colors. So that's one of the reasons too.
Oh yes, and thick. They said thick clothing because they can bite you through clothes.
And you're going through thorns and stuff a lot of times. So you want long sleeve, but a lot of these professional hunters, they don't anymore. They just well, in Tanzania they all did, but ones I've been on since, they wear shorts. They just it doesn't bother them.
Oh, they're probably so used to it by now.
Yeah.
You did talk about the zebras.
Yeah, the zebra was our nemesis.
Overpopulated, right? There's an overpopulation. Is there an overpopulation?
There's not. I wouldn't say there's an overpopulation of them, but they're like anything. They just have to be managed, and they have to be used sustainably, and they have to have value. They eat a lot of food. They're eating machines. Okay. Just like a horse is. Zebras. So, but yeah, and they're wild as wild can be. I mean, it took us 10 stalks to even get near one. So that's when I got that whole new appreciation for zebra. I was just thinking it'd be like shooting fish in a barrel, and it'd be like a horse. How can he want to kill a zebra? But yeah, they're wild as any animal there is, and they're brutal. I mean,
bet.
They people have these fairy tale views of wildlife, but they practice infanticide. They kill babies.
It's not Madagascar, people.
No,
it
isn't. It isn't.
Yes. Yeah. Did you? I literally something just popped into my head. You know when that happens, and then it and then it disappeared for a second. Oh man.
It was probably really good too.
You talked about it was the first night you climbed into bed with. Was it the first night you climbed into bed with Rick when the lion was like first night there's a lion like walking around your tent.
Well, we could hear him out there. We didn't know how close he was exactly, but he felt like he was right there.
Yes.
And
did you hear him walking, or was it
I
that you
could
hear him
because
like,
they are so silent? You could hear him. You could hear his call. That guttural crawl that they have. Yes. And it's kind of funny because the hyenas, because you go to bed early over
they're
there,
like laughing, right? They're like,
yeah. Well, and that's actually distress. They're actually in distress when they're laughing. That's not a laughing matter for a hyena.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's their way of stress. But yeah, they have like 11, 12 different sounds hyenas do. But they started pretty much as soon as it was dark. So, and we went to bed early because you're exhausted,
that's funny.
But they start right away. You hear the hyenas and all this other stuff. And then it seemed like it was always around 2 a.m.
Oh.
The lions, that's their most active time. And all of a sudden you could hear those guttural calls,
That's wild.
And it just stirs you in that first night. You're just, and it's so funny because you could hear, I could tell his breathing that he was awake, and he could tell I was awake just from our breathing. And he finally, after a bunch of silence, he finally said, well, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Oh, that's right. And you're like, I'm getting out of this bed and I'm getting out of that bed.
And that's when I jumped out of bed and I crawled in with him, even though it was a little teeny single bed. And I'm like,
you're like, deal with it.
I'm not sure what he was going to do for me, you know, and if a line came through. But yeah, it made me feel better.
At least you were right next to him.
But
yeah.
They always tell you, do not, whatever you do, go outside of a tent at night.
Yes.
Yeah, that's...
Well, didn't that happen to someone recently?
Yeah, that guy in Namibia went out to go to the bath. And he was a well-versed... I mean, he was put lots of money into saving lions and all that. He was real experienced, but he went out of his tent in the middle of the night and he was killed by a lion.
Oh, man. So what do you do if you have to go to the bathroom? Do you have something in your
tent?
That's
why they built that little bathroom. In our case in Tanzania, they built that little bathroom like right behind us. So we just had to unzip the tent and then go in there, you know, and we were all right. He said, just don't go. You know how some guys are. They just want to go off the deck or something.
Yes.
They said, do not do that.
Don't do that because it'll...
And then in other places, they usually have the bathroom right there so that clients do not have to do that, you know. And the last year I did have to sleep on a rooftop tent with a friend of mine that invited me over there, and I did have to go down in the middle of the night, and she came out with me with flashlights, and it was really nerve-wracking. But now we have little things like they're called that you use in an airplane that it turns to gel. So I'm prepared next time that you can just go like a urinal, whatever.
Got it. It's like a portable thing.
thing. And that way you don't have to leave your tent.
Yes, that's a thing.
Yeah.
That's I think for me, I'd be fearful that I would forget and I'd just be so tired and be like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom.
Oh, you won't forget over there.
Okay. Good.
You hear those lions or what? And not,
sure.
not every place has lions. When we went to Namibia where we were at, we didn't hear the lions at night. So every place is a little different. But yeah, when they're you won't forget.
I was like, what if I forgot? And I was just like, do. And then I'm like, wait, I'm in Africa.
Yeah.
I'm outside. So your writing is very personal and honest, which is what makes this book so compelling. Was it difficult for you to share such a vulnerable journey publicly?
It wasn't hard for me to share because I'm kind of like that anyway. I kind of, like I said, wear my heart on my sleeve. So it's not, that part wasn't hard for me. The hard part was knowing what I could be up against. So my husband, for instance, isn't even thrilled about everything because he worries about me, you know? And unfortunately, it does set you up for things. But I just feel like I have to do it. I don't feel like there is a you know, I mean, I try to be smart about it if I can and stuff. But so that was more the how people were going to affect. But I've been surprised, other than like on social media and stuff, I get such good feedback from the book itself, from hunters, non-hunters, men and women. It's so weird. Like now I've learned so much since then.
Yes.
You're supposed to gear towards a specific group and da-da-da-da-da. I just wrote from my heart, and it ended up appealing to all these different people without even meaning to. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I think there's enough adventure in it and enough about wildlife that the women and non-hunters like it, and they like the journey. They like to learn about Tanzania and the people. And then there's enough hunting in it. And then they also, I think the hunters love it too. Well, a lot of the hunters tell me, Sue, I feel like I'm there again for the first time. I'm seeing it through your eyes. I'm experiencing that first lion roar. I'm just reliving my first experience. That's what Dan Cabela said, as a matter of fact, you know, from the Cabela's Foundation.
Yes.
And he said that he just felt like he was reliving his safari, so his first one. So I think it takes them back. And they like that I can say things that they can't or didn't. Like they said, you have a way to put things into words that I can't portray to people. And I felt that, but I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, it was beautifully written, like how you described things. And that, for me, again, there was a lot of times where I was listening while I was driving. So I couldn't like take notes. I'd be like, I gotta go back and like listen to how she described that. And that's why I'm interested. I wanted to ask you about the cover art.
Yes, that was done by a woman in Namibia. I ended up getting a woman to help me edit, and she's from Namibia. I tried to keep all the money in Africa. So my editor's from Africa, and then the cover artist is from Africa. And I'm not creative in that way. They together came up with that, and I just love it. I just think it's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And what I especially love is not only is it people that are watching this right now can't see. I'm going to put a photo in the video. I'm going to post this on social media as well. You see a lion head, but inside of the lion are all these other nuances. I think
there's zebra.
There's a zebra, and is that a elk or a buffalo, or
it'd be a buffalo. It wouldn't be an elk, yeah.
And then even like the trees, and then on the backside there's some more zebras. There's another. It looks like there might be another elk there too. There's a vulture right here. It's just so beautiful. You can see the hippo in the water there on the back. But
then the little birds are actually bats because, nobody else might not get it because of the bats that were there every night that we had to protect our drinks from.
And what I love is at the top it says, her first night in a Tanzanian tent began with a prowling lion's roar. Will the savage terrors open her eyes to an unseen world?
Yeah.
You made, there was something that you said at one point about you felt like you were in a completely different world when you were there. And I think that's such an important lesson for people people do need to get out and explore, not just our country, but our world. I think when you go to other countries and you meet people from other countries, you learn a little bit more about yourself or what you're capable of. And I think empathy and understanding and, just a different perspective can do so much for you as a person, and how you, even moving forward in relationships or when you meet people or when you go through a really tough time, how it changes your perspective just on life in general.
Because you don't know what that person's gone through, that they're in a bad mood or whatever. You don't know what else is there. But that is one thing I did love about hunting tourism is that you build such a bond with the people because you're with them all day long, together, bouncing around that vehicle, tracking, doing whatever. Then you're with them at night. You're with them for weeks. Where a lot of times, I don't want to downgrade photo tourism. You can build a bond with them as well. But sometimes you're hopping at this lodge 2 or 3 days, and you go here 2 or 3 days. It's harder to build a connection. Where with hunting, because you are at an area for so long, I think that's why we're able to build such deep connections. And I always encourage that when you go anywhere, it doesn't have to be Africa, really try to get to know the people because that's what's so special.
It really is. And just seeing how I want to say from my experience, I had a friend, we did discuss this briefly, who got her master's in public health, and she spent, I don't know how many years in Africa. And her first trip was to Arusha, which is just outside, which is where you went into, right?
Yeah, that's where we flew into.
You flew into, and she spent time there with an organization that helped women learn skills so they could provide for their families. A lot of these women were HIV, AIDS positive. They were either born with it or they contracted it through their husbands who had gone out on them. And then after they contracted the disease, their husbands left them because it was frowned upon for them to be HIV positive. It just so many different things that you think about. You're like, wow, like imagine if something like that happened here.
I know.
It would be nationwide news if that happened, right? And so it's just so sad. And they just continue to persevere. They live in these little tiny houses. Well, she had posted a photo of this woman with a child, literally probably a 4-year-old child strapped to her body, but she was leaning forward and she was making soap in this. She was doing something in this water thing. And shared the story. And I messaged her, and this was my old podcast. I said, I need to talk to you. I'd love to have you on the podcast. I want to know what you're doing now. She used to take a class that I would teach out in California. So we connected, and she brought this woman to a cafe. They got on a Zoom, and I did a podcast interview with them.
Oh, nice.
And it was just so interesting because my brain right now is trying to remember this woman's name, and for some reason I want to say it was Marie. She was so warm, so inviting, so welcoming, but you can also tell that there's just like a simplicity. They don't need a lot of things, right? They really just want the basics. They want
They're happy. I mean,
they're happy. They want a roof over their head. They want to be able to provide for their families, and they want food in their bellies. And they want to be able to, if someone gets sick, take care of them.
And they want their kids to be educated now.
And they want their kids to be educated. Yes.
And they have to pay for education over there. I mean, like, it's not provided. So you, like, a tracker has to, you know, he makes enough money to send his kids to school. And a lot of times they'll if you have 4 kids, they'll only be able to send 2. So they pick the 2 that can go. You know what I'm saying?
But that's circle of life also with what you did. That's part of this. It's not only just that they are protecting these animals. They're protecting the land. They're protecting the people that live on the land, but they're also providing for the people by these, you know, men and women having these jobs and dedicating their life to this. It's like a pride they take in their land.
And there's a lot of, I mean, every hunting concession is a little different, but there are a lot that does stuff like that where they fund women, give them loans to create their own businesses. They have a lot of programs because it's the same thing. A good hunting concession knows that by improving the people's welfare, it only helps them to take care of the wildlife. So yeah, they have a lot of that stuff. You know, they provide schools aside from the meat and medicines or like I said, loans. A lot of them were given like little loans to women to start their little craft businesses or whatever it is, you know, sell honey or something.
It's just really remarkable, and it's a really beautiful book. And as I told you, I listened, and I'd be driving, and my favorite part is like the sounds, like all the different clips with the different sounds and the animals, and just. Did
you like hearing them?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. That's one thing I will say about listening to the audiobook that I really enjoyed, and your voice it's just so good. Your cadence, your tone, everything is really good, and the passion of what you experience just comes through your voice. And I know you had said that it just made sense for you to tell the story because it's your story. But I am excited to sit down and read it, and you know, go through this book and really like. Even like you had said, there's photos in the book too. There's different. Yeah,
that's the one thing that you kind of lose out on with the audiobook. But I do have some of the photos on my website for people in the audiobook. They can go there and look if they want to see like what Lillian looks like or what the water hole we were getting our water out of and stuff like that, you know, or what our tent looked like, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, and this photo, I opened to what we were talking about, the lions and the critically endangered vultures and other wildlife after a poisoning event and how awful that is.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking.
You know, when I lived in Boston, I had a landlord. I lived in an old brick round front, and we had some mice. I don't like to set out poison for mice. I don't like the glue trap. I think they're terrible. I am a capture and release. I'm like I set spiders free. Okay. Let's just be honest. If anybody really wants to know, like, do not kill a spider in my house.
Okay.
I don't kill spiders. I set spiders free. Even the ones that are kind of scary looking. I set them free. I learned that from a roommate, and it was like a thing that just got embedded in my brain. And so here I go again. I lost.
Well, while you're thinking, I'm going to tell you a spider story.
Okay, do.
So when we were in Mozambique, this, you know, because
my gosh, you're going to tell me about some.
People know it's just kind of funny because, you know, people think that hunters are these evil people, you know, and hate wildlife. I don't know what they think, some of these people. But our professional hunter, he loves wildlife so much, every critter. When we were with him, it was so wonderful because he would stop and show us a spider or show us a snake. Like he would say, well, there's usually a snake that hangs out down there. And we're like, well, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, we don't need to see a snake in Africa.
So we were in this hut and there was a spider, a big spider, like a 2-inch spider living in there.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, please do not kill this spider. It's a good spider. It kills other stuff. It lives behind your mirror. So please don't kill it. Well, I normally don't kill spiders anyway, but it was pretty, like I had to make noise before I went into the bathroom so that a spider would go hide. And then I'd hurry up and brush my teeth and do whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, how many people would suspect a professional hunter would say, please don't kill the spider?
Absolutely.
That just shows you the respect for wildlife.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And we're going hunting with him again this year, so I can't wait because he's just phenomenal to be with because he just loves everything. And he just wants to, when you're not on a serious, like when you're not stalking or something, he'll take the time to share these other things with you.
Oh, I love that. So I remembered. So my landlord said, I don't do poison. I don't like to do poison because my thought is that if I poison this mouse, it's going to end up, it could end up outside and then another animal will eat it and it will get poisoned and it was the first time. And I never put poison out for mice or anything. I've always had pets, so I've never wanted to do anything like that. But it was sort of this perspective. I looked at something from a completely different angle. I used a different lens. And to me, that's really what this is. Mm-hmm. You're from Fenelton originally. You now live in Idaho.
Idaho, yeah.
You've lived in Alaska. You continue to travel to Africa. And you were in the arena, like you experienced it. And I think a lot of people speak of things opinionated outside of the arena. They've never stepped in to experience it. And they've never stepped in to hear a different perspective or even just listen. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't have to agree with everything. And I think there are a lot of things that happen in the world and people are like, I'm not okay with that. And it's like, okay, but this is a subject to me that people really need to just educate themselves and open themselves up to the perspective of, but look at what this is doing. Look at all the good things that this is doing. I mean, and I can't believe I'm saying these words, because I'm typically like, if I see videos of elephants, that are chained and stuff, I'm like, no. Okay, can we just not, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. Don't ride an elephant.
Yeah. And tourists are
yes,
going to see a baby lion.
No.
What do you think happens to that lion later on?
Well,
or a baby monkey, go and holding a baby monkey at some resort somewhere.
Well, they're probably drugged up.
They're drugged up. Their teeth are removed. Their mothers have been killed.
It's awful.
Don't give any money to those kind of people.
No, no, absolutely not. I was in Indiana and we came across this wildlife feline center. I didn't know what my friend was talking about. I was on a bike at the time and we stopped and read this whole pamphlet of this place. And here, this gentleman, Joe, had started this rescue place 25 years prior to that. It was never anything he sought out to do. He was going to school, I think at Indiana University. We were south of Indiana University, and heard of a woman who had bought a lion cub to raise it, to one day have it killed and stuffed so people would come in her house and it would be at the front doorway. And he was like, that's disgusting. I have to do something about this. Mm-hmm. So he went out, he talked to some people, he got backing to get the funds to rescue this lion. Well, the unfortunate realization is that it can never go live in Africa. Mm-hmm. It can't go live where it's supposed to be. So what they did was they found this land and they were able to get grant funding to purchase this land. And they built they found trainers. They had 24-hour, they were able to work with local farmers to get them fresh meat. And he started with this lion. His name was King. And they had these huge, big enclosures and they gave them as much natural habitat as they could. Well, then it snowballed from there. Oh, someone in New York has a tiger in their apartment. They're going to euthanize it. So he rescued it. There was a lynx that this retired couple, they bought a lynx when they retired to drive around the country in an RV with it and realized they couldn't take care of this thing. It was a wild animal. And they buy these animals as infants. There was a white tiger that these people had given actual cat food to, kibble. And it caused it all these neurological problems. It had to get medicine every day. Its eyes were its pupils were dilated because they had to give it these shots so it could actually eat and walk around and function. There was one, it was actually sad. This one, they had to put it in a smaller enclosure and just make it slowly bigger and bigger because it had been a circus tiger. And all it knew was walking in a circle. All it knew was walking a circle. And there was a dirt patch where it was just doing this. And they slowly would get, so they didn't stress it out. But there was nowhere, these animals either had to be euthanized or that was it. There was no other option. He had, at this point when we went through there, and this was in 2015, he had over 200 that all were rescued. Circuses, people buying them.
I just don't understand why that's allowed. I mean, it's crazy to me.
It's how, you hear stories of people smuggling monkeys in basketballs. They put them inside of these. It's how greedy have we become as humans? So the interesting thing is that, you having this conversation with me and me reading this book and learning about this is like, it has totally changed my perspective on the hunting, the conservation hunting, and what it actually means. And I've talked to other people who have gone, to different countries and how like the laws are so strict. They're not going there to just like take home the head or anything. Everything is getting harvested to the people that live there. They're feeding people. They're even clothing people with hides, like depending on what they do with it. But every part of the animal is used. Mm-hmm. But to your point, it's used in such a respectful manner that they're mindful of the age of the animal, the life expectancy of the animal, and also like the preservation of the land, and then the animals overall, the population of these animals. It's just, there's so many different points, and it really makes me want to go experience it, because I think that's part of understanding something a lot of times is either hearing the stories from firsthand accounts or you yourself going and experiencing it. I know it's not something that everyone can do, but it's something, to your point, I have to make some extra sacrifices to make that happen. And
it doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg. People
No.
get this impression that it's really, really expensive, but every country's a little different. There's ways to do it that are very, very reasonable. Like I told you about, my friend over there who,
Yep.
It's just like I'm going over for 2 months. I'm going with my husband, and then I'm spending 5 weeks with my friend, and it's not going to cost me really that much.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, it can be done. And even hunting, you can hunt some wild game in South Africa, 2 or 3, 4 animals for the same price as going on a moose hunt or mule deer hunt out west. I mean,
Yes.
so people just have this idea that it's out of their budget, but it really doesn't have to be.
No, I believe it's possible. And that's the thing. You either want to learn and understand and respect people's choices, or you don't. Mm-hmm. And that's where it does turn into a bit of a black and white situation, because I think everyone's entitled to their opinion. It's hard when someone gives you facts and they say, well, this is necessary for this. And you're like, yeah, but I'm just not okay with that. And you're like, but you're not really hearing what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So
not even open to it, like I was talking about
yes.
that hippo post. I did that post about the management hippo, and I had the people standing on the shore. I had the whole thing kind of, in a little reel, and somebody's there, shame on you for killing that animal. But luckily people did come to my defense and say, shame on her for feeding 100 people. I mean, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
But yeah, some people just don't think of it out, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard because it's life. Did you say, wait, you said this. You said something like something about death as a part of.
What?
Was there something that you said?
Death is a part of life. I mean, it's just part of the cycle. I mean,
like
for something to live, something must die. That's the reality of things,
There was a chapter where you said something to that tune, and it just, again, it was another moment where it just like struck me. And it's true. It's, in a perfect world, we could all have food and the animals could live, and then when they die, but
Here's another thing that when I was thinking about the hippo, that people ask me a lot is, well, why can't they just hunt it? If they want to kill those animals, let them hunt it instead of foreign hunters. But if they did that, and first of all, that should be the nation's choice, the people's choice. Mm-hmm. If they want to allow foreign hunters to come in and pay good money to hunt those animals responsibly, that's their right. But if they want to let their own people do it, that's also their right. But the problem when they let their own people do it, it's the same thing here. You can't let everybody just go out and have a free-for-all for deer. You have to have it managed. You have to have tags. You have to have a value placed on it. You have to buy tags. You can't, even if you let them go out and kill their own hippo, that gives them meat for a day. It didn't provide any jobs, skulls, all the trickle-down effects. Think of the trickle-down effects when a hunter or photo tourists, they fly in, they have bush flights, you have workers at the airport, you have people growing your food, you have people at the baggage handler, you have
it's providing jobs.
Yes, it's providing, and it's not just that one, it's not just a tracker or just the Game Scout. It's this whole trickle-down effect,
Yes.
you know? And so by having foreign hunters come in and pay a value, pay money to hunt, you know, it brings the money and the jobs and all that other stuff. If you let them hunt, and again, if the nation says, we're just going to let our people do it and give out tags, I respect that. They have the right to do that.
Yes.
But most nations have come to understand, and the people too, they're like, well, why would we not want this extra money and jobs and everything that comes with it?
Well, to your point, it's part of that cycle of preserving the land. You're providing jobs because these people are getting paid to teach you and to also manage the situation. It's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, once you understand it, it kind of is a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer.
It's just hard for people to understand. It's a long conversation. You know what I mean?
Yes,
it took me.
It is a long.
It took me a whole book to get it.
I was going to say.
So,
how long did this book take you to write again?
It took me 2 years to write because I didn't know what I was doing, and then
there's 30 chapters.
Yeah, I think 30 chapters.
412 pages.
And believe it or not, it was a lot longer. And then I realized
Swahili words in here.
Yep, Swahili.
Yes. This is cool. I'm excited about these in here.
I still try to use it as much as I can. It's funny, like when people from Tanzania reach out to me on social media, I'll say Jambo Rafiki, hello friend, or something like that. And then they'll go off on all this.
And you're like,
whoops, sorry, I just know the basics. And then
you're like, I know 30.
But they get so excited when they think I know.
Of course. It is. One of the things I will say about traveling internationally is having a little understanding. When I went to Italy, you know, saying grazie and prego, they appreciate it so much, but they also from a young age are required to learn English. And every time I have these conversations, I think there was a time when I was younger where, and I don't even know if it was ever joking, but people would say, speak English, you're in America. And obviously now that it's so offensive, because why are we so against learning something new or learning something to make someone feel welcome? I mean, there is a part of that, right? Like whenever you take the time to learn someone else's language or what they do, it makes them feel welcomed. And that's what it's supposed to be about. And that's how you felt on this trip.
In another country, I think when you try to learn their language, just at least try, even if you botch it, it just shows respect for them.
Absolutely.
That you don't expect everyone to cater to the American way. You know, everyone, you know, oh, you're American, you know. So it just shows you respect their culture and their ways. But just by trying, and they laughed at a lot of the stuff I tried to say, but they loved that I was learning.
But they were so welcoming and so friendly. And it's just, that's the world that I love to live in. I like to live in that world and surround myself with people who are like that. Because to your point, you never know what that person might be going through. And I think that's becoming more and more prevalent nowadays. It's like, you don't know. You really don't. So why don't you just, you know, approach the situation with kindness and be welcoming and maybe give someone a little bit of grace. Maybe that's what they need. Maybe they need someone to just be kind to them. So I am so grateful that we had this conversation.
Me too.
Thank
you so
much. This was really great. We got 2 hours.
Oh boy.
We got 2 hours and this beautiful book, Cries of the Savanna. I'm just really honored.
Well, thank you for having me. I just hope I shed a little light on Africa and want everybody else to fall in love with it, because I really do fear for Africa. I fear for its people. I fear for its wildlife if the anti-organizations and everything going against it get their way. You know, if they win, the wildlife and the people lose.
Yeah.
So, and it shouldn't be a win or lose type thing. But anyway, so hopefully we spread a little awareness, and it was great talking with you.
Yeah, you too.
And it was good being back in hometown
Butler. Being back in Butler.
Butlerites.
Yes, we are. We are the Butlerites.
Yes, we are.
Well, thank you, Sue.
Thank you very much, Laura.
Thank you so much for listening to this 2-part conversation with Sue Tidwell. I hope it challenged some assumptions, stirred up curiosity, and gave you a deeper understanding of the real issues behind wildlife conservation. And as a thank you for tuning in, Sue is giving away a signed copy of her book, Cries of the Savanna. It's powerful, honest, and filled with moments we didn't even get to in these episodes. To enter, head over to Instagram and follow Alter Eagle Podcast. Follow the instructions on the giveaway post. You can also share the episode for an extra entry. Deadline is midnight on August 10th. The winner will be announced on Monday, August 11th. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time. Today's episode is brought to you by the Butler County 4-H and FFA Junior Livestock Auction, happening at the Butler Farm Show on Thursday, August 7th, starting at 5:30 p.m. Thank you for tuning in to Alter Eagle. Join me every Monday for a new episode, and be sure to click subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Until next time, stay safe, stay hopeful, stay kind.